what is a sadhu? That's the topic here. Sadhu means someone who has dedicated their life for spiritual understanding, and sadhu vaidya, who helps others to become free from birth and death. A renounced person. Now, it could be said that, well, it's a good thing that sadhus are getting into business and politics and who knows what else they could become. We might, maybe in a few years, we'll see the Indian cricket team in saffron. There will be sadhu this, the first batsman, and so on. Although they probably have to not have long flowing robes. And theoretically we could have sadhus in all kinds of professions, and maybe they do a good job, but I suspect that most people would prefer that sadhus be sadhus. They should speak on Shastra, the revealed scriptures, and give instructions. If they're going to be involved in public life, we're not saying they shouldn't be involved in public life, and even politics and business. They can give advice to politicians and businessmen and anyone else. But if they themselves become so much involved in it that their role as a sadhu is overshadowed by their role in politics or business or cricket or whatever, then the distinctiveness of them as a sadhu becomes lost. And then sadhu means just anyone else. It's just that they have the name of a sadhu and the dress of a sadhu, but they're not really doing the work of a sadhu. So sadhus are supposed to speak on Shastra. And it's not just that they advise others, because there are many people who advise others, just like this analogy is given of a sadhu being like a doctor. So a doctor gives advice, but it's not that every doctor is a sadhu. Or a politician may give advice, but it doesn't mean that a politician is a sadhu. Or a parents may give advice, but then or teachers give advice. But sadhus, at least according to the actual definition and understanding that's been coming down since time immemorial, the sadhu is one who gives advice on how to become free from this entanglement in this material world, and most specifically a sadhu is a devotee of Krishna who gives information about Krishna. So even sadhus may give advice, and they may, satsangas are there, very well known. People come together and they listen to a sadhu, and the sadhu gives talks, just like I am giving a talk now. So sadhus, they give talks and in which they give advice to people in how to improve their lives. But if the sadhu gives advice on personality development, or how to cure boils, how to get your children to be serious about studies, if their talks are a lot of jokes or telling entertaining stories, even if the entertaining stories are on subjects which are derived from scripture, that sadhu is not really doing what a sadhu is supposed to be, because a sadhu is very serious business. Again, the example of a doctor. If you go to a doctor, you have a disease and you're seriously suffering, and the doctor just tells a bunch of jokes and sends you away, well, that's a useless doctor. He's got to give you treatment. He's got to actually treat you. He's got to get to the point. He might be a very popular doctor for telling jokes, but he's not a doctor. He's got to treat you, and the treatment means he's got to give you, he's got to know what he's talking about. He's got to give you specific treatment which the patient has to follow. It may not be to the patient's liking. They may say the patient now on for the rest of your life you can't eat sweets. You have to stop that altogether, and you may not like it, but you have to follow it if you want to get cured. It's a serious business. One goes to a doctor you expect the doctor to be very serious because he has a very serious role to play in human society. And he might be a good joker on the side. He might, apart from being a doctor, he might be good at telling jokes, but that's not what makes him a doctor. That's not his duty. His duty is to cure you by the prescribed method. So similarly, people may like to go to sadhus who are very expert at speaking in a way that people like, but if at the end of all of it, if you're not gaining guidance, clear understanding of how we're suffering in this material world and how we can be free from this suffering and how we can revive our original blissful Krishna consciousness and go to Krishna in the spiritual world, then what's the point? How is the sadhu a sadhu? It's not the dress. After all, anyone can dress like this. In a drama, someone can dress up as a sadhu. And they may play the role of a sadhu, but then after the drama's over, then they go back to being just like anyone else. So a sadhu is a very distinctive role within human society. Of course, we say sadhus are renounced from the material world, but they may involve in it for the benefit of others, what they've received, what they've understood, what they've realized. They try to bring that to others. But that means to bring to others, to people who are in material consciousness, who are entangled in material life. It means to bring them something different, something higher, something better. There may be many jokers, many magicians who can perform tricks, and they have sleeves, and out of the sleeve they produce a watch or something like that. There was a famous sadhu, or actually they used to call him Bhagavan, God, who was well known for producing watches out of it's supposed to be out of his hand, but it was probably out of the sleeve of his tunic. It didn't say, you see on the watch, it would say Rolex or something like this. It was already a brand which was already there. It wasn't Sai Baba. Oops. It wasn't something that he had produced originally. He never produced, for instance, motor cars. Here's a motor car, boom. But only things which maybe that he was hiding them in his tunic, maybe. He was a magician, good magician, no doubt. But that's not the job of a sadhu, to do magic or to promote toothpaste or to be a politician or anything else, but to direct people toward the real goal of life, which is to understand who we are. We are eternal living beings, caught in the vicious cycle of birth and death, and how we can get out of this vicious cycle and revive our eternal blissful life in the service of Krishna.